was so much momentum after the revolt, and then it peaked, but then it collapsed.
Handshake.
Yeah.
And not to be discouraged if you...
Yeah, we are not saying you go steal money. We are not saying you do, you go kill or do these other things that politicians do. But you see, like, for example, one of the things that a lot of these politicians are doing is getting paying bloggers.
Yeah.
Why can't the good politicians also pay good bloggers? Because if that tool is powerful, why can't we start paying? There's nothing wrong with writing. If you're writing, there's nothing.
But it depends on what people are writing.
Michelle,
But that's what I'm saying.
But the
But
bad
that's
people
what
are
I'm saying.
writing bad stuff. We need good people
But
to write
that's why
good
you need
things.
someone to counter Dennis Itumbi. You cannot be letting Dennis Itumbi come with his systemia facts, and then there's no one at this other side. And there's an example. If you go check a page, like on TikTok or X, called Occupy Democrats, that is good blogging. It's like there's crazies on the right, but guess what? There's also good blogging. So it's like trying to find a legal way of doing it. If it's money that's required, is there a legal way of trying to raise money to support these candidates? We actually have a template of a candidate who's won without doing all these crazy things, and his name is Okia Omtata. Yeah, he was able to win in an environment where ODM had poured so much money, UD had poured so much money, but he was still able to win. We need to figure out what exactly is it that they did.
Michelle Obama, they had come out when they go low. Or is it when they go high? No, when we go low, we go high.
Yeah, because
How was that successful in 2016?
but let me
DCI has an office in Safaricom. I don't know how true that is.
No.
I don't know. But that's one of the ways
But they've
people
been
are
using
saying that
the-
being
that
tracked.
they're tracking
Those
using
are
the
the
phone.
people giving
Yeah.
people the phone numbers, and I know Safaricom has come up. I think it's all PR. I think if you know how Kenya works, you know that they're somehow
But-
colluding into some
Okay.
Yeah, because it's
messy
either they're
situation.
colluding with Safaricom
Oh,
or they're
okay,
colluding
hold
with
on,
like
hold on,
Nokia,
hold on.
iPhone.
Ngoja Ngoja Malize will come to you. So you're saying
So
that there's
that's
collusion.
what what people are saying is that the telecommunications industry in Kenya is being used by
Government.
Law enforcement.
Ruto, let's just
Yeah.
say to target people that are being vocal on the internet. And so now that people have a digital footprint, as you said, back in the day, people didn't have digital footprints, right? Now you have multiple accounts that are linked to your phone number, right? Your phone emits radio waves, right? People are able to track using, the cell tower signals. Now that people are more technological, it means that they're leaving behind traces. And if the government has money, they have money to buy and pay people who are skilled to run those systems, right? They have the money and they will track people because they want to remain in power. So what we need to do is to figure out how can we continue pushing, being resistant, being aware that they have the money but we're also smart, and that we're also skilled, and we're also technologically savvy to be able to resist.
Reflecting back briefly on how there was so much momentum after the revolt, and then it peaked, but then it collapsed.
Handshake.
Yeah, was that what exactly was going on, especially within chatter amongst Gen Z? What is it that made that movement, which had moved so fast, just spectacularly collapse?
I'm gonna mention something before I answer you that
Sure,
I wanted
sure,
to
sure.
say, so I don't lose it in my mind.
Yes.
It was about the idea, peasants versus the elite.
Yes.
Something I think people should be wary of is the term Gen Z leader. Just because someone is Gen Z does not make them a good leader. I think we should still uphold the standards of good leadership, regardless of the age group.
Amazing.
Because we've seen that just because you're young does not mean you have the right approach to being a good leader, right? So just because someone is in this age group and they're saying all the right things, they have very good posture, demeanor, whatever.
Oratory skills.
Oratory skills. I'm not talking about
Yeah,
anyone
it's,
specific.
Really?
Yeah.
Not everyone is meant to be a leader, so we should still uphold the same standards of what a good leader means, regardless. Because I know with the coming election, it's gonna be. I'm honestly kind of sick of hearing the word Gen Zs. I'm not gonna lie, but I know with the coming elections, it's gonna be we want Gen Z, we want Gen Z. But is the Gen Z a good Gen Z? That's the question that we should ask. Just because we want young leaders doesn't mean we want all the leaders.
Wow.
So that's an interesting point you brought, because like even our generation, when millennials were younger, there was also that talk that this is the detribalized generation, they're gonna come and change everything. But I think unfortunately what happened with our generation is that there was no divorce from the previous political formations. So the people who benefited were the people who shouted the loudest for the previous political formations, and they were the worst
Same
of the
kind
worst.
of people. Same person, you're
yes.
just younger.
Yes, and I have no problems mentioning names.
Kiarie.
Kipchumba Murkomen,
Wow.
Kiarie, Sakaja, yes, because these are the people who are, they are actually very upright millennials who would have done a very amazing job, but then they were not able to penetrate the political systems, which is the other thing that I think I was having a conversation with you. The good people need to learn politics, because I think that's part of the problem, whereby mtu anajiona, like this is a muddy affair.
I don't want to get dirty.
I don't want to get dirty.
Yeah.
I don't want to get involved. So when a lot of people do that, then it's only the crazies are the ones, the swindlers.
My friend says that politics is a full contact sport.
Yes.
Full.
Yeah.
So you cannot be Mr. Nice Guy.
You cannot go play rugby and expect not to get tackled.
Mpaka ukanyage shingo.
Yeah.
Lazima you kanyanga somebody.
Yeah. Sheila,
But do you think we are normalizing violence within politics?
No, by a contact sport.
Not violence.
We're not normalizing violence. By a contact sport,
Politics is dirty.
We mean
you have to be ready to get dirty.
By even using the rugby analogy, there's a legal tackle and an illegal tackle.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to go do legal tackles.
And not to be discouraged if you...
we are not saying you go steal money. We are not saying you do, you go kill or do these other things that politicians do. But you see, like, for example, one of the things that a lot of these politicians are doing is getting paying bloggers.
Yeah.
Why can't the good politicians also pay good bloggers? Because if that tool is powerful, why can't we start paying? There's nothing wrong with writing. If you're writing, there's nothing
But it depends on what people are writing.
Michelle,
But that's what I'm saying.
But the bad
But that's
people
what
are
I'm
writing
saying.
bad stuff. We need good people
But
to
that's
write
why
good
you need
things.
someone to counter Dennis Itumbi. You cannot be letting Dennis Itumbi come with his systemia facts, and then there's no one at this other side. And there's an example. If you go check a page, like on TikTok or X, called Occupy Democrats, that is good blogging. It's like there's crazies on the right, but guess what? There's also good blogging. So it's like trying to find a legal way of doing it. If it's money that's required, is there a legal way of trying to raise money to support these candidates? We actually have a template of a candidate who's won without doing all these crazy things, and his name is Okia Omtata. He was able to win in an environment where ODM had poured so much money, UD had poured so much money, but he was still able to win. We need to figure out what exactly is it that they did.
Michelle Obama, they had come out when they go low. Or is it when they go high? No, when we go low, we go high.
Yeah, because
How was that successful in 2016?
but let me hear Sheila's. Let me hear
2020,
Sheila's.
sorry.
Let me hear
I
Sheila's
think
point.
as long as it's not getting outside of the boundaries of there's that mudslinging that people do where they come after like your family, or they come after you for things that are irrelevant from the politics. Like especially like when you see women who run for office, a lot of women have. If you I've talked to women who've actually run for office in Kenya, and if you talk to them about the things that they experience running for, it's horrendous, to be honest.
Correct.
So Yeah.
No, Mika, hold on.
Sheila Maliza, and then we're going to come to
Yeah,
you.
so if we are playing within the boundaries of, I'm going to fact check you when you lie about me, of, we'll put out polls, we'll pay bloggers to make sure a certain information is out, that's fine. But when it comes to like insulting people,
No.
No, we're saying
We are talking about
because you have to counterbalance, because whatever the Itumbis and the lies are doing is having an impact, because most people are gonna read.
So like the sponsored hashtags.
Yes.
Yeah.
So people. So you have to find a counterweight and.
Can we sponsor?
But
hashtag?
the count, we don't need to sponsor it, guys, because I'm constantly like checking on Twitter
not?
whenever there's a protest. It's organic. It doesn't need to be sponsored.
So now it has to go. It has to go beyond organic, because these other guys, they are there daily. You cannot wait for when an event happens. These other guys, they're there daily.
24/7.
Remember during the when the war in Gaza, there's a lot of war going on in the world now. Israel is attacking Iran, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Israel, you mean?
There was a lot of propaganda that Israel was trying to throw out, and that's when people on this other side land, you have to pay people to counterbalance what they're doing. If you don't, you have to go overwhelm the algorithm with what they're doing, so that the information that people are getting, because we're in an algorithm controlled world, so if we don't figure out a way of giving support to the good people, because if you do the thing of, let me go do a good manifesto, and then let me go make a speech about policy, political reality is
even your fans and followers will be like,
smoked out.
Kwani this person is not saying what this person is saying.
I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I'm saying a lot of that negative stuff, the Itumbis of this world are being countered organically.
But then let me tell you something about politics.
yes.
Check what's trending on Twitter right now. Check what's it's going to be a mix of government and Kenyans.
If you want to run for politics, there are two things you have to be you have to accept. Number one is that no matter all the good that you will ever come to do as a politician, you will be remembered for that one bad thing that was said about you.
Like Kaluma.
It might be true, it might not be true, but that is what you will be remembered. Once you reconcile with that fact, you'll be fine.
It's a thankless profession.
Number two, in politics, if you want to be a good politician, you have to be able to not get offended by every lie that is thrown around you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to have a tough skin.
So insults are gonna be there. It's a way of intimidation. Let me get you out of your character. Let me insult you. Get out of your character. You lose a debate. I win it. I might insult you and the moderator say, don't do that. That's bad, right? But then I've unnerved you and you can't debate me. I beat you on that debate. I gain points.
Yeah,
and I show people he's weak. And that's the thing. We cannot, the one thing that we have to separate from life is that we live in a moral world, that we are politically correct on everything. It will never happen. I'm not telling people to go outside there and just be disrespectful and insult people, but do understand that there's somebody out there who's looking at you and they cannot, for their own purpose in life, come to understand how miserable their life is and look at you and they see how happy you are. And the only way they want to do is put in that misery with them, and they will come for you in ways that are not fair.
Okay.
So as a politician, there are some things you have to realize. Obama was told he married a man. He was being called a monkey. He's been called everything. He never once lost his cool. You could see him getting pissed off, but you never saw him losing his cool.
I think I get what you're saying, but is there room to be realistic and say this is the world in which we live in today, but we don't want to live like this forever? So yes, I'm going to have tough skin, I'm going to have thick skin. If you say 1, 2, 3 about me, it's not going to affect me in such a dire way, but we also can't be creating the conditions and the environment that will allow for this thing to keep happening. So, again, talk to the women who run for office in Kenya. It's a different ballgame.
Yeah. And then I'm saying this because I'm saying this because I have actually worked in campaigns here, Kenya, and I understand what happened in those campaigns. And that is where I'm telling you, The reason it's like that, it's because how it's been like politics hasn't started right now. Politics started way back in time before we came here. It's always been a dirty game. It's always been a popularity contest of who's going to make more people like them than the other person.
Okay.
So there's always going to be that defamation and those. I agree with you. We are not supposed to have that environment. But if we want to tell people to discuss, if we want to be active in politics, if we want to be able to make a difference in politics, because right now, if you start doing civil education among your peers, utatukanwa na wengine. Kama hiyo itakufanya pull back, and I get you, that's you. If it gets to you, that's you, sawa, pole. I really hope nobody does that to you. But then and that is where it comes back to my first point. Whatever good you've done, there are people who won't appreciate it. Be satisfied with the good. Mwenye yuko satisfied naye ni sawa, kwa sababu at some point utakujiwa.
Okay, so let's come to Joy back in
I
studio.
do agree with Sheila, and I think we're talking about different things. I think what he's saying is, as a leader, expect criticism, which I think is something you can't control if you're a public figure. But I think what Sheila is talking about is how difficult the system is to get to that pinnacle of power as president. The amount of things that you have done for that is something some people cannot stomach. It's not just a comment. It's not just people have insulted me, now I'm going to quit. It's, it's sexual abuse. It's sexual assault.
Yep.
It's murder. You hear, this MP was murdered. You never, it could be politically, most likely politically, it's not small things that we're talking about, right? It is major infringements of human rights for you to be able to get to the pinnacle of power. And personally, if someone told me for you to be president, let's assume I'm a good person, right? Or anyone here is a good person. I say, I want to be president. And I thought, okay, you have to be part of this genocide, do these a few things, kill these children, and then you'll be president. And then finally, when you're at the top, you'll be a good person, then you can enact. I'm signing out, right? There are things we need to work on as a country that make politics such a disgusting experience, both for men, but even more especially for women.
Absolutely. And there are things that we need to work on in the long term. But then there's also certain things that we need to work in the short run. Like, for example, 2027 is coming, and it's coming very fast. So we have to decide. I think one of the problems that has been there with the good side, or the people who want the ethical stuff and everything, is purity tests. And I was talking to you about it, like, how pure is this person? So we get a person who's fairly a good person, but because there's one little thing that they were able to pick up, now all of a sudden, this guy, and this is a problem that we also see with the Democrats here in the US, they're gonna nitpick on Kamala, and then now everyone is gonna cry, like, how could people vote for Trump when you went and sat out, like during Kamala, because there were issues here and there that you did not agree with her. So I think we also have to start, like, weighing and knowing, we're not gonna get a perfect human, as long as someone is sufficiently ethical. Maybe at some point in his life, he may have taken a bribe here and there. He may have done this, or maybe he may have been involved in something. So I think that's where we also need to be careful, because you're looking at a purity test. On this other side, these guys they're supporting their scam.
I'm not looking at a purity test.
Yeah.
Remember what I said in the beginning. Institutions, not people. I think for me, when I think about a best case scenario out of this revolution, is that we create such harsh conditions so that even if we elect the devil himself, he has no room to be corrupt. He has no room to violate human rights. He has no room to kill people who dissent against his government. That's what I want. Aside from that, we are not going to achieve that if we start saying, okay, we have leeway for this, we have leeway for that. We can elect someone who's been in 1-2 corruption cases. You start saying that, and by the time you're done, everybody will be on the table for election.
By the way, Kenya, yeah, 1 second, Mika. By the way, Kenya has, when you compare continent-wide, has some of the strongest institutions. When you compare, like, within Africa, let's not even go. Okay. Let's compare apples to apples. Compared to other African countries, we have a very progressive constitution. If you read our laws, they're very strong laws. The problem is if we have a leader who is determined to go against those rules and laws. Look at what Ruto is doing. Things that nobody ever thought can be done. If you have someone who's determined that they don't like, even within the United States, the country that apparently has some of the strongest institutions, look at what Donald Trump is doing.
I get what you're
Look at
saying.
what Donald Trump is doing. So that's why I'm saying it is important, yes, to find the right people. But at the moment, when these are the three options that we have, we know this one guy is a scum of the earth. This other guy, you know, like he's the one who's on our side, but he's not at 100%. Maybe he's at 70 or at 65%. Let's not keep amplifying, because what tends to happen, and that's what the other side does, they will look at that small thing where, like, for example, like with Kamala, whereby Republican groups were the ones who are amplifying those small issues that Democrats had, and then they become larger than life. Then all of a sudden someone is saying, I'm not even going to vote. Then the next thing you have is a Donald Trump. Because think about it. Think about a second Ruto term. Just think about it.
I get what you're saying,
Yes.
but the math you're doing, it's as if 2027 is tomorrow. It's as if we have no room to find our new leaders who can come, and they can come with their integrity.
Give me an example.
Of what?
Do you have any example of maybe 2-3 leaders
Kenya
who
law.
both have integrity and can have a path towards beating Ruto? Do you have any 2-3 names in
I
mind?
cannot even speak to that right now because I don't have a crystal ball. They might not be having that integrity
No,
in 2027.
but who do you in your mind? Because as you talk about integrity, there's someone that you have in mind, or is this a unicorn? Is this someone who doesn't exist? Now you see, and this is what I'm talking. The reason why it's a difficult question.
Yeah.
I have my own unicorns. I have my own unicorns, but then again, I'm also looking realistically, because we want someone with integrity, but at the same time, we also want someone who has the capacity to defeat Ruto. So you see, right now, even thinking about that person, and 2 years is not a very long time.
I get you,
It's
yeah.
right in the corner.
Yeah.
Around
So
the
I'm gonna give you homework, because I know that's a difficult question. Think about 2 people or 3 people in mind that this is the kind of person that you think will be a good leader. Because the same way you struggle to think is the same way all people who want someone with integrity up there are struggling to think.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying we also have to compromise, because if we are not getting to that position where we can even name an individual, it shows you how difficult.
But can we
this is.
counter that with good institutions? Let's say we don't get our 100%, we get our 90% person, 90% good. Can we counter
But then-
that with strong institutions so that
Ali,
there's no
can I answer
incentive?
that?
Yes, and that's a long-term project.
Long-term process.
That's a long-term
Ali,
project.
Ali,
That's
can I
not a
answer
2-year
that?
project. Yes, go ahead, Mika.
In America, we do have good institutions right now. But you have a guy who's breaking laws every day with executive orders. And he breaks laws because he has pumped courts with these people. He controls both houses, and he's doing illegal stuff, right? We have military now arresting people inside the country. Like, that's a violation of the Constitution. So you can have, the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that you can have institutions, but as Ali said, if you have a leader who was determined that those institutions don't work, they won't work.
A
I
distraction.
get
Yeah.
what you're saying,
Especially-
which is why
especially
I'm going to
Especially the control.
90%.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Especially if that leader has decided that this is how they're going to be. Now, one thing we have to realize is that if we go back in time to creation, there was good, then bad came in on the 7th day. Right? After those 7 days, bad came in, and now there's good and evil. And the world has always had good and evil. Everybody has good and evil in them, right? The reality is you being able to understand that this is bad, this is evil, and this is good is what builds you as a moral. We cannot have, and everybody has a different moral compass on how they're doing things. So when we get to a point whereby in life we understand that there is evil, then that will be able to make you, as a good person, understand how you want to find that evil. And that is what Ali was saying when he was saying that the good side also has to start responding, also has to be countermeasuring everything that is coming. For every salvo that is coming from that side, you have to come in. The same way for every murder that is committed, it has to be exposed and people push for it, for prosecution for it. Even though it takes time, even if justice takes time, push for it. That is how we're going to balance this world. But expecting that the world is going to be leaning either on a good side or on an evil side, it's never going to work.
Okay, I'm gonna let Joy respond to this, and then Sheila, and then we're gonna move on from this, because this is a very hot conversation.
I think a good summary for what we're discussing is, presently at the current time, Kenya has broken systems, and those take some time to repair, because it starts mentally even before it gets into the system, right? If we think about the police are, they're trained from when they're recruited that being brutal is the way of doing things. I mean, before you're able to change that kind of thing, it takes time. So I think, number one, in the present moment, we need to focus on picking the best possible leader as much as we can, the best possible leader. And number two is that we need to then focus less on the people and more on system reforms. How can we transform our prison systems? How can we transform our police system, our education systems? Those are the things that affect people in their daily lives, right? The president is out there running around, but the education system is what's teaching children, right? The police is who people interact with every day. The healthcare system is where people, are passing away from very simple complications. So I think systems are the most important thing that we as Kenyans, outside of even election time, we should be pushing for. Not every time who is going to be president, it's, are we advocating to transform our country from the most basic things? That's where all of our energy should be going into.
Okay, now before real quick, before Sheila, before you give your last submission, there's one thing that I'm gonna like I'll say from experience. I personally think what we need is a system to groom good leaders and have a support system that will allow them be able to win those political seats.
I agree.
Yeah.
The leadership will always beat good systems. As in, you have, and this is just also with my experience in leadership, a good leader will give you better results with an average system than a place that has good systems. And I'll give you an example. In a company, it could just take a change of a CEO. A very well performing company, it could just take the changing of a CEO.
A company and a country,
they're two different things.
You
even
can't
a country,
compare the two.
Yes, even a country. Remember when Kibaki took over from Moi, we still had the same constitution. We still had the same institutions.
The system, though, is actually, it's to protect people from a bad. It's not to. If you have a good leader, yes, he can work with a bad system.
I
but
agree
if you
with
have
you.
a bad, it protects people from the amount of pain and suffering
How well,
compared to a bad system.
Can we agree that America has good institutions? Can we agree?
Arguably. I mean, there's countries that have better systems.
Okay.
Actually, no, because electoral college.
Yeah, there's countries with better systems.
Gerrymandering.
No, I'm talking about, so
better than Kenya, maybe.
So give me an example of a country that has good institutions.
So the top ranked countries in terms of, it's the Nordic countries. Are they called the Nordic countries?
The like
name?
Super Western European,
Scandinavian.
Scandinavian. And the Scandinavian countries. And I've been to Mika Ngoja Kidogo, and I've been to Sweden.
I'm not an expert though. Don't quote me.
You know what they do? They groom their leaders. Not anyone can be. Those Nordic countries, there's a common denominator in all these countries that have very good systems, from Switzerland to the Nordic countries. There's a very common denominator, and the common denominator is when it comes to grooming leaders. Some of these leaders are known even from when they're in high school, and it is so difficult. If you're a sleaze, we're on a Joyani, like, that's not even a space that I'm gonna bother to go and interfere. And I think what's happening in America right
and that's
now.
a system, isn't it?
Yeah.
They've created a system of
system.
so it repels all the. They
But
know
there's
that they
also
can't
expectations.
So it
exactly.
it
Like
only
if
takes,
someone
it,
was blatantly corrupt, like the country would stop.
They know that they.
it only takes one bad leader to make a very good system entirely rotten. Look at what's happening. Let's look at what's happening in America.
But also,
We are
I think
not
a problem is using America as the base
Yeah.
for
No,
our
But we're not
comparisons.
arguing for either or. We're
We're not
arguing for
yeah.
both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
forget America. Forget America. Take out
America.
America.
'Cause,
Take
you
out
know,
America. Take out America.
It's
Let's
not the
look
base
at England.
of what
Let's
we
look at
should
okay.
compare everything
Let's
to.
look at the UK under Boris.
Even the UK. But
Okay, yeah, let's look at the UK.
So that's
okay,
what
okay,
I'm
take
asking
out
you
the
guys.
UK.
Yeah,
Take
that's
out
what I'm
the
asking
UK.
you
Look at-
guys.
look
What
at
I
example?
wish I had a better
I-
example, but
Look
I
at
think
France.
we need to move away
And then
looking
you
at
see,
these two
when you look at the
countries as
Scandinavian
examples.
countries in Europe, also look at the institutional racism that is in those countries. It's bad. So it is good for them. For it's good as servicing a certain demographic, which is the majority. And then so when they do those what do they call them? When they do those polls, when they do those data analysis scores, they pick up that data and they show it to the world. Yeah, it looks good.
Let's
Yeah,
read some
but there's-
comments
oh,
here.
because of a certain aspect.
Let's
anyway.
go to the comments. Let's go to the comment. Hapa Esther Mulusa taking a different take, anasema the Tawe movement is anti-Musalia and Weta, plus it is veering the Luya members away from Baba. We want to stand as a community. It is growing fast and furious. It's aligned to Rigiji. So hapo Esther Mulusa talking about a tribal formation. But yeah, and we're still there. And we're still there. Hapo, that's Esther Mulusa. Hapa Washeke anasema the credible Kenyan politicians have to approach campaigning the way Republicans do it. They have mastered messaging and spreading narratives to win. Washeke then says they don't play nice. They play to win and a long game. Esther further says during last year's Gen Z protests, the governor here, that's in Kakamega County, had his goons causing mayhem, but they were overpowered by the young ones. I think the paid goons in the most recent Nairobi protests are being tracked down one by one. They're getting exposed. This pushback will disable hired goons. And then I have Skylar Roberts here saying there are no utopian institutions that can curb the powers of a president. And then Sasha here says Singapore and Japan have like the best system, and it does not begin leaders. It begins from the grassroots, from even the schools, and how kids are handled. The number to call
No.
is
I
202.
disagree
Ngoja Mika. Number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. This is a very hot topic. I think we need to have another episode and just discuss leadership because and institutions and systems and institutions. Yeah, Mika, let's tufanye tutoke kwa hii topic because sasa
Can I give my final too?
She didn't give
I didn't give my final.
Okay, sawa, Mika, give 1 minute and then Sheila 1 minute and then
I wouldn't even take 1 minute.
No.
But I feel like we're doing very...
My final is this. My final is based on Singapore and Japan and Malaysia.
Yeah.
Sasha, go back and research. It was actually president.
Sasha?
She's commenting. She's in the comments.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, I'm not
so-
Facebook. Gen Z are on Facebook.
We don't use Facebook. It's
Wow.
Yeah.
for
Okay.
fossils.
Wow.
Sasha, go back and research on those countries, and you will see that in every major change of those countries, it was done by a certain president. Like Singapore, Malaysia, when they were pulled, when the richer countries separated from each other, Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, when the dependent country, it was the president who set up certain. So it was that leader who led the country in a certain way, so that they can be like that. It was not a system that was there.
All right,
I don't
good.
think they're mutually
and then-
exclusive.
yeah.
I think leaders should work with good systems.
Okay, and then Michael Orlando says Miguna. This is on YouTube. Miguna has a bad name, but he's a good candidate like Donald Trump. He can transform Kenya. That's Michael Orlando. Different opinions. And then Michael Orlando also says PLO would be another good choice. Sheila.
Yeah.
Kizungu
I'll say we're doing very important work of imagining what the future is going to be like and how we're going to fix the country. And I would say that what necessarily worked for previous countries might not work today for Kenya because it's a different time and it's a different country. And we need to focus on our strengths as a country. And one of our biggest strengths as a country is that we have a young and educated population and an active citizenry that can actually push for things. If you see the kind of not really reforms, but the kind of things that the police are going through this week, there's some things they cannot try to do, like watachoma nchi. So it's not going to work the way it worked for Singapore and Japan. It's going to work differently, and we need to keep doing the work of imagining how it's going to work. I personally believe it's going to be a mix of good leadership and systems, because even in a system of accountability, you can't just have the power being in one person's hand. The power needs to be in the people's, in the systems, and maybe now that leader who you donate that power to. So it's going to take both. At least on Kenya's side, I can say that it's going to take both.
Okay, thank you so much for that submission. But we're going to organize another episode to talk about this leadership versus institutions and figure out.
It's leadership and
leadership and institutions. And the reason why I ask for example sometimes is because even all the good things that have been applied, we are not there are no wheels being reinvented, like even with our new constitution, with the institutions that are working right now, like everything, when you look at everything at a granular level from Kenya, they've borrowed it from somewhere else. So we don't have to borrow everything from one place. We can pick the good from here and the good from here and the good from here, and we bring that together. And most of you were born in the 2000s. That's why it may be very difficult to understand where actually Kenya came from. I always tell this interesting story where my mother was called to school because of an essay I wrote when I was 11 years old. Against President Moi. So that's the kind of country we were living in when I was 11 years old, in standard 5.
Why were you writing bad things about a leader?
Yes, and I can never forget about that. But it was things were that
controlled.
Bad. Yeah.
But aren't we heading there right now?
But you see, but the other argument I'm trying to bring in as we exit this topic is Kibaki and Moi operated under the same constitution, under the same institutions, but two entirely different
experiences.
But did Kibaki try and reform the constitution?
Yes, he reformed the system
because he saw the systems
they're
not working.
He saw that the system was broken.
But the system that he worked with while he was president, the new constitution, came at the tail end of Kibaki's presidency. But for the 8-9 years he was in leadership, he was able to provide good leadership under those same institutions that Moi was using, under those same systems that were there during Moi's time. And that's why I tell you, with the institutions we have right now, it will only take a good leader. It will only take one good leader. So let's say, like, for example, if we have a President Kivutha Kibwana is one of my unicorns. If we take a President Kivutha Kibwana and put him in power, I guarantee you, we will get, with the same institutions, same constitutions, I guarantee you, we are going to get very different outcomes.
That's the difference between our generations, is that we are not willing to put all of our hopes and dreams in one person, because people also put those hopes and dreams into Ruto. People also put those hopes and dreams into Uhuru. So we can have our good person by all means, but it needs to be backed by systems.
Fixed,
So I totally agree with you, but again, systems are run by people. Yes, systems are run by people.
Yeah.
And again, I think we're going to have another episode where we're going to have a very vibrant conversation. I want us to talk about the silent crackdown that had been happening since the revolt. There were disappearances, there was a lot of surveillance, and now we are hearing whispers about spyware in Kenya's budget, like the spyware that's built by the Israelis called Pegasus. This is a spyware that was used to kill Adnan Khashoggi. Those who followed Adnan Khashoggi's case, that's what the Saudi government used to track him.
Sorry, do you mean the journalist from Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
I don't believe
Adnan
that was
Khashoggi.
his name.
Adnan Khashoggi.
Yeah,
yes, that's
Khashoggi, yes, but the first name.
Adnan, that's his name.
Okay.
Yes,
All
my
right,
dear,
all
that's
right.
his name. Adnan
Jamal
Khashoggi.
Khashoggi.
No, Adnan.
Are we talking about a different person?
Wait.
It was Jamal.
Is it Jamal or is it
Jamal
Adnan?
Khashoggi.
Adnan, I think, is the
Adnan
dealer.
is the dad. No, Adnan is the dad.
That's the dad.
Adnan is the dad. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Jamal Khashoggi.
Jamal, okay.
Yes, you're right. I was wrong. Adnan is the dad. Jamal Khashoggi is a journalist who was killed by the Saudi government using that software. Now, maybe let me come to you, Joy. Maybe you've read a little bit about this. Tell us what's happening here. We've seen DCI, they killed Robert Ojwang, and just days later, a hawker protesting was also killed. Albert Ojwang. Yeah, but they were able to track Albert to Homa Bay County. What exactly is happening? Because zamani ilikuwa ukijificha from police hawezi kukupata.
Once especially you go Ocha.
Yeah.
No one is finding you.
But now they can pinpoint you from a foxhole and they will pick you out. So tell us what's going on.
I think Kenyans should not be surprised. I think a leader who wants to remain in power will use everything at his or her disposal to consolidate and remain in power. And I think Kenyans should expect worse and even more crackdowns. If it means buying the multi-million software, they will buy it. If it means killing more young people, they will kill. If it means disappearing more people, they will. Because it all doesn't matter to them. They want to remain in power, and whatever can be done and will be done. And I think Kenyans should remove the idea of appealing to empathy to these people. They don't care. They don't feel the way we feel, or things like those things don't matter to them, because 1 life and 10 lives is all the same to them. The regard for human life is not there. So I think what Kenyans should be more focused on is not, you better believe it, and it's gonna get worse, right? Our focus should be on resistance, right? How do we, the conversation is that DCI has an office in Safaricom. I don't know how true that is.
No.
I don't know. But that's one of the ways
But
people are saying that being tracked.
They're tracking
Those
using
are the
phone.
people giving people the phone numbers, and I know Safaricom has come up. I think it's all PR. I think if you know how Kenya works, you know that they're somehow colluding into some sort
Okay.
of
Because it's either
messy
they're
situation.
colluding with Safaricom or they're colluding with like Nokia, iPhone.
Ngoja Malize will come to you. So you're saying
So
that there's collusion.
that is what people are saying, is that the telecommunications industry in Kenya is being used by
Government.
Law enforcement.
Ruto, let's just say, to target people that are being vocal on the internet. And so now that people have a digital footprint, as you said, back in the day, people didn't have digital footprints, right? Now you have multiple accounts that are linked to your phone number, right? Your phone emits radio waves, right? People are able to track using, the cell tower signals. Now that people are more technological, it means that they're leaving behind traces. And if the government has money, they have money to buy and pay people who are skilled to run those systems, right? They have the money and they will track people because they want to remain in power. So what we need to do is to figure out how can we continue pushing, being resistant, being aware that they have the money but we're also smart, and that we're also skilled, and we're also technologically savvy to be able to resist. There's so many, if you see the woman that was arrested for creating a website to break down down the finance bill, we have someone who's started another one to count votes parallel in 2027 already. Being preemptive is like, let's just get ready, right? Kenyans are very smart, and we should, if they're building tools, we should be building tools of resistance as well. We need to match, because we are younger, we're faster, so it might take them months to integrate these systems, but for us, I think it's a lot easier.
With Albert Ojwang, his once after they killed him, his social media was completely wiped out, gone. And how is that done?
I always have. This is something I've actually been wanting to look into, is what is the Twitter office in Kenya, and what kind of connection do they have to tracking? Because I don't know the answer. But if someone on Twitter doesn't have a picture, doesn't have their name on there, but they're able to find the phone number. I listened to a video that said, if the government provides reason to these companies that this person is a person of national interest, he's a national security, they will offer the information under that clause that this person is being investigated as a possible threat to national security. So once they have your account, they find the phone number. Safaricom does their thing.
Okay, let's go to Mika, and then we're gonna come to you, Sheila.
So first of all, let's not give Safaricom too much power that it doesn't have. There is as far as where cell phone company, where telecommunication companies can go. Safaricom is not involved in you being abducted at all. What Safaricom can do is just ping a phone to a cell tower.
But how do
And
you know
that's
that,
it.
Mika?
Yeah.
Hold up, let
Oh,
me
no,
finish.
Dwight,
Because I work in tech. I'm actually speaking, I'm coming back to that. So ngojeni niwajibu.
Mumeambiwa mutatu. He'll track you.
Ngojeni niwajibu. So one thing you have to understand is that there are companies whose bread and butter is farming information about you, right? Companies like Palinta, Iokina Pegasus, and these are companies that offer their services to governments and also to companies, employment companies. If you've ever been advised that when you apply for a job, don't use the same email address that you use for your social media because they'll farm everything on the social media and know what kind of person you are. Have you ever gone for an interview, gone to the final step, and then you're on a job from unashangani nini? But it's something they actually put, and social media companies actually are among the biggest customers of data from social media companies is the government of the countries that you live in. They're always going to buy data from social media, and that data is how they watch people, right? Remember Snowden and how he exposed the NSA is actually looking into Americans while he's supposed to pretend that he's not looking into Americans. Yes, from phone companies, if they feel that you're a person of interest, they can go and ask for things like the numbers you have called. They can ask for text messages. They can ask for data like that. But the phone company will actually just pinpoint you to the nearest cell tower. The nearest cell tower can be 5 miles away from you. It cannot pinpoint you to where you are. Now, companies like Pegasus, which are companies that actually can put malware in your phone and start tracking you. You remember when you sign up for Twitter, you give up a lot of your information, your address, your name, your phone number, your email. This is information that we give out public without actually knowing that this is information that is sold out. So when you buy a phone, that phone number that you gave out, and when you bought that phone number that you gave out, you applied for credit somewhere, your social is there. If I can get to your social, I can get to the deepest part of you. These companies do that. And that is why these companies sell this data. That's why you can be able. And when Kenya actually got this software, it was during Uhuru's tenure. It was during when we were having a lot of terrorist attack. The reason they got this software, most countries get this software, is because intelligence right now has become a technological warfare. Intelligence sika kitambo, you had to put a spy in a country. The spy takes pictures and then goes away. Intelligence right now is up to whereby you buy an electronic from China. It's been rigged with a camera recording you, but I hope maybe you can leave your computer open and you work for the government and they can see information. So spyware is working differently and countries have to come out with ways to defend them. Unfortunately, countries also have issues within their borders. And what do? They spy onto their citizenship. The only issue is that this guy is using these guys are using facilities that are supposed to protect you to spy on you. So we can be mad at Safaricom and say Safaricom is doing this because it makes a good narrative. It makes a good story to tell. It makes it easy to understand for us to blame something like Safaricom. But no, our government is using infrastructure that's supposed to be protecting us to spy on us.